Today I've got a very special treat for everyone. Seriously, today's cartoon comes from that very special realm that has brought me things like My Life Me, or the Donkey Kong Country cartoon. France! Seriously though, it's actually really hard to talk about French animation as a whole, because it tends to be extremely varied in styles and tones, and in quality. Much more than pretty much any other place in the world. For every Totally Spies, and yes, I know that Totally Spies is actually a French cartoon and not a Canadian one. You can please stop commenting about that. For every Totally Spies, there are really amazing shows like Code Lyoko, which are just some of the best goddamn things ever. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Code Lyoko is one of my favorite all-time cartoons. The way that it blends traditional animation and CGI, and making all the styles actually look good is something impressive. And if the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour taught me anything, it's that some things that were originally drawn in 2D should never be drawn in 3D. I'm loopy. Seriously, what the fuck is that thing? Kill it. With fire. The story and the concepts of Code Lyoko were great, with many extreme and intense emotions. And the characters were all excellent. And of course, there was that theme song too, which is still in my top 10 favorite ever made. I bring it up because today's cartoon, The Invisible Network of Kids, takes a little bit of inspiration from it. To be absolutely fair, The Invisible Network of Kids rips off Kids Next Door a lot more than Code Lyoko. This show is about 4 kids forming a secret Asian club to fight against the tyranny of an over-the-top adult villain. I mean, it's not exactly hiding things. Just look at the name of the show, Invisible Network of Kids, abbreviated in the title down to INK. 2 of the letters are even the same as KND. This can't be a coincidence. My comparisons to My Life Me and the Donkey Kong Country cartoon aren't coincidental either. I love reviewing things like this because, oh boy, are we in for a ride today. I won't just go out and say that this show is weird, but you know, moments like this. This show has many of them. You two poopers, I think I found you a new gold mine. The second episode of the show is about a teacher using butterflies to hypnotize everyone in the school to act like they are caterpillars and start forming their own cocoons upside down in a tree. And at the end, she dresses up like a giant butterfly and starts singing a song, so there's that. But I think the first episode is funnier for none of the right reasons. For such a bizarre show, the theme song is surprisingly mundane and, well, boring. It's just some super secret agent riff. And as for the animation, there's really not much that I could say. It's passable. I guess it has its own style, but there's really nothing special about it. It's hard to say anything more than I could say about any other cheaply produced Flash cartoon. But trust me, both of these things are deceptively mundane when we get down to the actual content of the show. The first episode starts with a dream sequence. You know, like all good television series do. A little girl wanders into the basement where she gets grabbed by a bunch of shadowy hands.
It was just a nightmare, and a stupid one to boot.
So, the actual episode begins in class, with everyone acting chaotic. And the first character we are introduced to is Miss Macbeth. She makes this show. I don't know what she makes this show, but she makes it. First of all, she's designed more or less like pretty much every stereotypical mean teacher in history. And her main gimmick is that she's a math teacher that can't do math. And this would be horribly cliche, but look at the body language and just listen to the inflections in her voice.
It's too bad that 0 is too high, because you have minus 12! And for each negative number, you'll copy 1,000 times. I am a lowly worm when it comes to math. Minus 12 times 1,000 is 14,000 times!
Ma'am, 12 times 1,000 does not equal 14.
Newton, mind your own business. Because of your insolence, your friend's punishment has been doubled!
A lot of times when going over these bad cartoons, it really feels like everyone's just hating what they're doing, and this should have never been made.
And now, Kathy. All of your answers are correct. But you forgot to write the date in the margin. 0.5.
But here, you can clearly tell that the actress behind Miss Macbeth is having a lot of fun. Wait, wouldn't that technically be Lady Macbeth? And then we're introduced to the principal, who doesn't do jack shit in any episode I've seen. And the kids love him for that, apparently. Considering what they have to compare him to, it's understandable. Oh wait, he did do one thing.
Oh, no. This must be a mistake. I'm not a director. I'm a Lepidoptera larvae.
What?
After my chrysalis period, I will be a magnificent Euplagia quadrupunctaria from the Arctiidae family. In fact, I have to go find a quiet place so I can begin my metamorphosis.
Mr. Supper, what are you doing?
I'm building a cocoon. It's the perfect place for me to turn into a butterfly.
So yeah, there was that. It was an interesting choice, not introducing our heroes before we get introduced to our villains. I guess it's understandable because the heroes in this show are rather boring. If we go back to the Kids Next Door comparisons, each one of the 5 has a lot of personality, and they were very forward with it. Number 1 was an overly serious leader and could get too involved with the job. Number 2 had a love for making bad jokes and was really good with gadgets and so on. They were all very well defined. Here, I'm having a hard time figuring out any of these guys, beyond what's superficial and obvious. And even then, Trixie and Newton kinda run together. I mean, from Vin, I get that he's superficial and obvious. Zero is the fan favorite because she's a goth and is tough, and that's really all that we learn about her, at least in the first few episodes. There is one thing we do learn, though. Vin is an asshole. He doesn't want a girl named Kathy to tutor him in math because he thinks that she's ugly because she wears braces. From that, you could probably tell every single beat of the actual story. Vin's vanity is going to catch up with him, and he's going to have to get braces, or be disfigured in some way. And then learn that beauty isn't just skin deep. They need to do something to really make this original, and not the most cliche, trite thing in history. So we cut to Macbeth in a secret underground laboratory, and we found out that she's placed cameras all over the school.
160 cameras stacked with microphones, which will automatically be activated whenever the 3 words I detest the most in the world are uttered. Invisible, network, and kids.
Huh. So you think that no one, except these people, are going to use the word kids in a boarding school for kids at recess? What I'm saying is that she's not very smart. And she loves her goldfish.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
Immediately, the invisible network of kids, which isn't really a network, it's just 4 friends in a group, they start talking and get detected by Miss Macbeth. So Kathy comes up and suggests that she and Vin tutor in the library. But because he's embarrassed and an asshole, Vin tells her to meet him in the basement. It's almost like that dream wasn't a dream, but a premonition. Dun dun dun! There's something about Vin and the way that he moves, his facial expressions and his body language. It reminds me a lot of Johnny Test, and that's not a good thing. So the others do rightfully call Vin out on this, but it just feels forced and preachy. It's like all of the other Planeteers calling out Wheeler for, I don't know, having kids or something. In this case, it is a good message, but the people who actually need it would find this preachiness off-putting. Zero immediately starts pulling Vin away, and then the others notice that they're being watched. Nice use of perspective, by the way. Makes it look like they were playing hopscotch on the fucking wall. Trixie fools Macbeth by saying that the network refers to the internet.
It's not them. I should have known. Trixie, Zero, and Newton and that moron Vin are just a bunch of internet nerds.
Hey, I resent that. Vin says that he wasn't trying to make fun of Kathy and that he actually feels sorry for her, in a way that doesn't actually make him any more likable. And that gives Macbeth an evil idea.
Yours must be worse than some medieval torture instrument. It must be horrible having those things in your mouth, not to mention the canker sores you probably get. And drooling all the time, and top it off, it's like super duper ugly.
What a wonderful invention!
Me, if I were in her shoes, I wouldn't even dare open my mouth, and I'd hide all the time so nobody could make fun of me.
But that makes you an ideal student, my dear Vin. Oh, yes, the ideal student.
Seriously, she just cracks me up. I mean, just replace her with Night Brace and this would be directly stolen from the kids next door. But the way that she's going so over the top with this is just hilarious to me. Just look at some of her facial expressions. I think I know where the budget went. After school, Vin comes over to do a punishment for failing math, and his pen basically knocks him out. And then Macbeth gives him braces. That give her total control over him. She tells him that the apparatus will stop him from telling anyone about this, so he goes to tell everyone about this. And yeah, it stops him from revealing about the braces. And these smart, super genius kids can't figure out what's up.
No, it's not.
Typical attitude of an aesthetic obsessive like you. In other words, you refuse to accept the fact that you're less handsome than before.
Right, and Vin was the hypocrite according to you. This is why preachiness usually fails. The preachy ones tend to have the exact same flaws that they rally against. Oh, you're an awful person for making fun of Kathy for having braces. But I truly do think that braces make someone less attractive. Like, what the hell? Vin takes a pen and paper and draws something badly. Instead of, writing down what happened. Like he was doing before he put the headset on. As far as I can tell, nothing in the story stops him from communication through writing. The braces stop him from talking. And as far as I can tell, the headset isn't making his drawing skills shit. It was never actually established how good they were.
Poor guy. He was so proud of his looks.
Yeah, he doesn't deserve that.
You are all hypocrites. Every single one of you.
Hello. Don't we have something super duper important to do, Jasper?
Yeah, sure do.
Sorry.
Wow, Vin, what's that on your head? Wow, boy, is that ugly. What is it? Oh, I know, it's for the school's film club horror night, right?
So the message here is that braces really do make people look ugly, right? Because that's what I'm getting. This would work fine if Vin was ashamed and trying to hide, and only he cared about it. Like, if no one else actually cared that Vin was wearing a headgear, and he was making a mountain out of a molehill, it would make the message, actually work. I know that his headgear is more extreme than Kathy's, but Vin's friends treat them the same way as any other braces. If they were special in some way, they would catch on immediately, right? This is a terrible way to convey the lesson that they're trying to get across. So, these braces get Vin teased and beat up, and then the braces turn him into Doc Octopus when he gets angry. I'm not even kidding. The more angry that Vin gets, the more the tentacles appear. Do you know what this calls for? Miss Macbeth to have a musical number. I'm also not kidding here. This is the kind of stuff that I live for. There comes a time in every man's life when he must ask the question, what the fuck am I watching?
It's my lucky day.
Why is she dressed up like Marilyn Monroe? Why would you make that connection? Yeah, my sentiments, exactly.
Under my control, I will have it my way and apologize.
This song had 4 writers, by the way.
Every child will look the same, so pitiful and lame. Robots and clones, doing what I say. Under my control, I will have it my way. I shall demand.
Also, Miss Macbeth gets 1 song per episode. It's not that every episode has a song, it's that every single episode has a song sung by Miss Macbeth. Every single one of them. I don't normally do this, but I want to show you what kind of effect this gives. So we're going to put this episode on pause, and we are going to see her song in the second episode, because you really don't want to miss this.
Power has given me wings. I can fly to the highest spheres of tyranny. Deprive me of depriving. What could be more horrifying? End my rule of tyranny. What a painful thing for me.
Where's my samurai indeed? There's only one person in the world who could have possibly come up with something like this.
Not all be bad.
Do you think that if these two had a kid, the world would, explode. What kind of person would that even be? They would be the most fascinating person that I have ever met. I have seen both heaven and hell today at the same time. Let's get back to business though, shall we? After whatever the fuck that was, the rain mysteriously stops and Macbeth is able to make the robots go capture everyone else. After all this time, we cut back to the other kids at the library who are finally catching on that a person whose teeth pretty much didn't need any kind of correction. They decide that the only way to figure this out for sure, though, is to look at Vin's school medical records. Instead of maybe a photograph of the vain kid. This show was made in 2009. Everyone was documenting every single thing that they did. Honestly, the school's medical records would probably be the least useful and most outdated thing you can find when it comes to looking at the appearance of Vin's teeth.
When you mix purified carbolic acid with cough syrup, here's what you get.
Meth! Lots and lots of meth. They figure out that they could probably find Vin in the basement. Kathy figures that out too. And then the kid who spread Doc Ock tentacles because he failed a math test by a teacher who has an affinity for dressing up as Marilyn Monroe and serenading kidnapped children takes this girl to the top of the boarding school, where they find out that it was all a plan by the evil banana to send monkeys to the middle of the desert to starve to death.
It was just a nightmare.
Lol, pranked. The other kids find Vin's coded message, where every number represents a letter. Oh, for the love of God. Even for a parody in a kid's show, this is like the most stupid, overdone, non-effective form of code possible. Seriously, even as a kid, I thought the characters that used this kind of code were being way too obvious. And they did it all the time, too. And every time they used this kind of cipher, it was treated as the most clever, indecipherable code in history. I mean, if a kid is going to be into a secret Asian show just like this, they've probably seen a little bit of cryptology.
I knew that Vin stunk in math, but not that he was this bad. He can't count any higher than 26.
I just want to point out that there's a 26 on the page, but according to Trixie, there's no Z in the actual message. You know, unless Vin can't spell either. Then the kids find a secret passage through the toilet. Yes, really. This should be just called Yes, Really, the Show. There's a teacher that dresses up like Marilyn Monroe and sings a song every episode. Yes, really. They come across the headbands. They learn that the headbands only work on people that have poor self-esteem and are full of vanity, even though it apparently works by sending electrical impulses to the brain that have nothing to do with vanity. Can I just point out how terrible this whole plan was? Yes, even by kids' show standards. I mean, yes, Vin is vain. Wait, I just realized that. Vin is vain, just without the A. That's some A+ writing. But Miss Macbeth really expected everyone in the school to be vain, especially when there were so many kids preaching about how it's wrong to think less of other people by their looks, even though they also simultaneously believed that braces made a person ugly or less attractive. No, I am not letting that go. Maybe it's a mistranslation from its original French, but this is seriously something that should have been overlooked and corrected. Also, why do the kids know more about the headbands than the person who made them? Yes, Macbeth is an idiot, but she's the one who actually made the damn things. The solution to this episode's problem is to accept yourself for who you are. What's the moral of episode 2? Love conquers all? Oh no, wait. It's that butterflies hypnotize people into forming cocoons on trees. And also global warming. Macbeth still has control over Vin, and that's enough for her. But Zero comes in.
You got everything under control, Zero?
Just like a dentist appointment.
What does that even mean? Is that like a Zen riddle or something? In dentist appointments, you give up control. In fact, the loss of control in that situation is what freaks a lot of people out about dentist appointments. Badly animated Flash fight, go! Seriously, the worst effect that Flash has had is on intense action scenes. It can be done well, but it's something that needs to be done frame by frame, with everything moving. Something that people tend to use Flash to avoid. It's just squiggles and hands grabbing each other.
Vin, don't listen to her. You are not ugly. What is ugly anyway?
I don't know, you tell me. You were calling Vin ugly earlier, so I'm assuming that you know a thing or two more than I do.
The real ugly ones are those who make fun of the ones they call ugly.
So I should hate everyone in the school for calling Vin ugly, including all three of you. What kind of half-assed message is this? Actually, half-assed doesn't begin to describe it. It's no ass. This show has given me no asses. Well, that's not true. It gave me 3 of Macbeth's earlier. I'm getting off topic. Vin realizes that he can be beautiful on the inside, so he's now allowed to be beautiful on the outside again. Because outer beauty is a reward for inner beauty or something. And since Vin's only defining trait was vanity and being an asshole, and he's neither now, I know nothing about him. Great introduction to the show, by the way. So finally, Vin is willing to be tutored in math. In public. Ooh. Even though the teacher gave everyone zeros because she herself didn't understand math. Wait a minute. Suddenly this is making a lot less sense. Kathy got all of the answers right on her math test from a teacher who doesn't understand math. Does that mean that Kathy is actually the worst math student in the entire class? Also, you know that dream? That actually happened in the middle of the episode, and Kathy was just hypnotized into thinking that it was just a dream. Yeah, you just got Tarantino'd by a kid's show from the late 2000s. Wait a minute, if it was a dream, then why did Kathy claim that she awoke from another dream when Macbeth put the headset on her? And didn't all this happen on the same day that she asked to tutor Vin? None of this is making any sort of sense. Seriously, rewriting is important. You need to do it, even if you only have a week to make these episodes.
If it wasn't for her, I would have never freed myself from Macbeth's evil braces.
What are you talking about? No, she didn't. She was just there. Zero's the one who fought him, and Trixie gave him the talk about inner beauty or whatever bullshit. The episode ends with Newton messing with Macbeth, and then we get a PBS-style expose on beauty standards throughout the ages and how they change. This should be fun and not controversial whatsoever.
Mr. Sapper, you look ridiculous.
Today, perhaps. But when I was younger, this was the cutting edge in fashion. What was seen as beautiful yesterday is often seen as ugly today.
So that's why the other kids were justified in both calling Vin out for calling Kathy ugly and then calling him ugly?
Well, in the Middle Ages, it was very expensive to dye clothes, so...
Wait, you were alive during the Middle Ages? I know that the ages in the show don't communicate very well. Macbeth is actually supposed to be in her 20s. But damn, you actually look pretty good for a millennium-old dinosaur.
Was there a time in history when, people thought it was pretty to be a bit overweight?
Ah, yes, thank you, totally realistic child who asked the perfect question to continue my lesson that doesn't go into the depth that any of these topics actually require. Also, I don't appreciate you teaching pop history and historical myths to children. Yeah, the obesity was attractive in the Middle Ages kind of thing. That isn't actually true. If it was, you'd think that more paintings from the Middle Ages and the Renaissance would have more overweight people in them. Especially since these art styles, especially from the Renaissance, tried to capture a romanticized view of the world and beauty.
In a nutshell, physical beauty and ugliness change all the time. So in the end, they are notions that mean nothing at all.
You know that applies to almost everything involving a culture, right? I could apply that exact logic to laws. Laws change all of the time, and so do the standards in which they are measured. So in the end, they're notions that mean nothing at all. I mean, if you want to get really philosophical, sure, nothing means anything. But your wording is bad. Was the show translated from Google? I know what they're going for, and I agree that we can get too wrapped up in appearances. But they're teaching this like someone who flunked out of teaching school and decided to make a cartoon. I'm not saying any of this to be a dick. I myself am an ugly piece of shit, and I know that, and I'm not one to talk about beauty standards. But they need to be more in-depth and do more research if they want to actually teach about this. Actually talking about how beauty standards change over time requires more than 30 seconds attached to the end of the episode, throwing random factoids at your audience, and something beyond a cast of hypocrites. And they do this in every episode. I don't mind a show having these educational segments, especially at the end, it's probably the best place for it, but you do need to go beyond, you know, pop science and pop history and mythology. The second episode, for instance, goes into a very simplified, like too simplified to be useful, lesson of the butterfly effect. It touches on chaos theory in a show that's aimed at elementary school children. I think that this was just meant to hit the educational standards of the 1990s laws, but this came out in 2009 in France. It's just teaching because it wants to, I guess. But if it wanted to teach, then it could have at least bothered to do it correctly. Other than the forced preachy educational shit, I actually had a lot of fun during this review. It's a terrible show, no doubt, but it's terrible in the way that Donkey Kong Country was terrible. Both shows have a fan base, and they have a fan base for a reason, believe it or not. and with just how fucking batshit crazy Macbeth is, I can see why the show has a fan base. This is one of those shows that I would earnestly put in the so bad it's good category. And I know that not everyone is gonna agree with that. It's a lot more subjective than any other kind of final verdict. But this show has an evil teacher dressing up as Marilyn Monroe with clones of herself as background singers. I'm sorry, but you cannot top that. Honestly, I've noticed this kind of effect on me with a lot of French cartoons. I don't think I can think of a bad French cartoon that doesn't have a strong fan base like Totally Spies or the Donkey Kong Country cartoon, or one that is just so bizarre as fuck that I can't help but find it interesting, like My Life Me. And I know that half of the comments are going to be asking me why I hate Totally Spies, like they do every time that I bring it up. So I guess I should finally review that next time and give you guys some reasons why I don't like Totally Spies.